Well, welcome everybody. My name is Stephanie Hathaway. I am the Director of STEM Professional Development at Discovery Education. Glad to be back here in Phoenix City. I was fortunate to meet some of you at the leadership retreat and see some familiar faces out there. But I want to take this opportunity to introduce Rhonda Brown. Rhonda will be working with you over the next 4 sessions for your admin professional development. Rhonda comes to us from Discovery with a wealth of knowledge. She's been in the school district in Indiana and in Florida for over 30 years. She has been in the classroom, she has been at the district level and held a variety of positions, and she is also an Einstein Fellow. So she comes to you with a lot of distinguished STEM background, STEM experience, and I hope you enjoy working with her. I know she's going to enjoy working with you all. Hi.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm at a disadvantage today because I have that to look at. So if you see me like, it's a dreamy look out there, just pull me back in because that's very distracting. That is such a gorgeous view. I walked in and just went, wow. So I'm glad you're all facing this way, otherwise you never pay attention to anything that I say. So welcome. I'm very, very glad to be here. My 5-hour drive yesterday turned into over 9 hours, though. The traffic was unreal. And if I had really been thinking, and I wasn't, I would have realized that it was the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and everybody else would have been on the road too, because Highway 75 was a parking lot most of the way. It was ridiculous. Okay, this worked earlier, so why is it not working now? There we go. So today we're going to talk about Leader Corps. We're going to get into a lot of information, but we're really skimming the surface of a lot, and we're going to get into more depth as we go along each session. We're going to talk about what the Leader Corps are, the people who are going to be in the Leader Corps are, what the characteristics you're going to be looking for, and I just kind of want you to keep that in the back of your mind as we go along. It's not something we're going to dive into today. We're just going to learn today of all the things we're really going to be doing in the next 4 weeks. So, big welcome again. And I had a slide on here for Mr. Wilkes to talk, but do you have anything to add?
No, ma'am.
I guess he said it all.
Good.
So, who is Discovery anyway? You've probably heard of the Discovery Channel, and when I first started learning about Discovery, that's about where my knowledge was too. And boy was I surprised when I found out how much more Discovery is, because the Discovery Communications is a very broad company, and Discovery Education is a piece of that. And they not only have lots of viewers on their channels, and there are numerous, but they're also one of the most trusted brands. One of the things I was really surprised about were all of the awards that Discovery Communications has. So when we say that they are award-winning for their digital content, they're not kidding. A couple of weeks ago, I was actually in Silver Spring where their headquarters are, and when we walked into every floor, every office was lined with awards. Trophies. There was even an Emmy on somebody's desk. I was totally shocked and totally blown away. So when we brag about Discovery, we have the awards to back it up. Discovery likes to pride themselves on meeting students where they want to learn in the digital age. How many of you have teenagers at home? Do they ever talk to you, or do they just text? Yeah. My daughter texted me from her bedroom one day and said, "Could you bring me a glass of water?" Yeah, I don't think so. But that's where they are. They are in the digital age. For us, it was like learning a foreign language. I got my first computer when I was 40. So, you know, I'm learning all of this stuff. If I have a problem with something, what do? I ask one of the kids. They can fix it. My granddaughter can fix it. Okay, quiet enough. As you can see, I'm technically challenged. Shark Week, a big thing for Discovery Channel. North America, that's not one that I'm really familiar with, but I do know about Shark Week and Life. And as you can see, that STEM is a big part of all of these, how it's made. My students, when I was in the classroom, loved that one, as well as Outrageous Acts of Science. Okay, we don't want to work very well today. Here we go. Crocodile Hunter. How many of you watched Dancing with the Stars? Crocodile Hunter, yeah. Yeah, his daughter was on there, and I have to say I was totally enthralled with her, and only because of him did I watch her, and it was pretty amazing. Taint. All of these, I'm sure most of you are familiar with them. Meerkat Manor. Mythbusters. We used to show Mythbusters in classes all the time when we would talk about different topics of science, because I was a science teacher. I can't do that anymore. In our district where I live, my teacher friends always talk to me that there's not enough time because of the, you know what, 118 out of the 180 days are spent in testing of some sort in Florida right now. Man versus wild. Okay. So the STEM mission is actually woven throughout the entire organization. As you can see, STEM's probably been a part of Discovery since before you even heard of STEM. And now we're just bringing it to the forefront and discussing it. This is going to drive me crazy, guys. The network content, obviously, is a STEM focus. Digital content, digital streaming, you're all familiar with that? I was totally impressed with the digital streaming once I got to see it. Many years ago in the classroom when it was first brought to us, they said, here we have it, make an account. So I did, and nobody ever showed us how to use it in my district. So I was one of those that's like, okay, what do I do with it? Well, you guys are very lucky because now with Discovery, they have the digital streaming and the support that goes with it. They have thought leadership that is part of STEM. Engagement programs. One of the things that Discovery has, they have classroom challenges and classroom contests that they can use, as well as assessment pieces that are in the now. You know, students always, here's my test, what's my grade? Well, with digital partnerships with Discovery, you can have that immediate feedback. Professional development, you're going to learn how many hours of PD it takes for it to become a culture. I can't tell you how many times I went to PD and I thought, well, this is really great. I can't wait to use this. And I get back to my classroom and it's like, oh, I don't remember what I'm supposed to do. And there was nobody to ask. And so guess what happened to it? Nothing. It put on the shelf and I never used it again. Not to worry, with Discovery we have constant support, constant PD. There are after school and summer programs with Discovery, as well as government affairs and policy input using the STEM. As you can see, the digital system for Discovery is quite impressive. They start with content. Now, Discovery is not focused on content. The content comes from your content. We use your standards. We do professional development centered around pedagogy, learning strategies, teaching strategies. It involves community and communications, constant communications. The assessment piece. Whoops. When it works, and when it doesn't, it won't. So, as our agenda today progresses, we're going to get you out of here by 4 o'clock, I promise. I'm really good at getting you out right on time, maybe even a few minutes early. We've already done our welcome. We're going to talk about the STEM transformation and how we make that transformation. What do you need to do? What do we need to do? We're going to talk about the STEM Leader Corps. What is it? And how do we select the right people for it? We're going to talk about the support that the teachers get and the support that the teachers will give to their colleagues. And at the end, we're going to talk about what you've learned, where you need to go, what questions you might have. Any questions so far? All right. Now, I've done a lot of talking. See, here now it will work. and you know all there is to know about me, I want to know about you. How many of you in the room, do you guys all know one another? I should ask that first. You do?
Not really.
But how long do you know one another?
Too well.
Well, we'll find out about that. A few weeks ago, I did this particular community builder in a district, and we found out that one of the principals had been a model for QVC when he was in college. Nobody knew that, but it came out during our community builder. On your table, you should have some blank pieces of white paper. If you don't, let me know, because I've got plenty up here. Everybody have paper?
Hey, that's cheating right there.
I bet you did.
We have more policy against that.
So on your piece of paper, I want you to trace your hand. Now, I know that some of you, this might be the hardest part of this, tracing the hand. Doesn't matter whether you do your right hand or your left hand, just trace your hand. It also doesn't have to be a work of art, so don't worry about it if it doesn't look quite right. And we are not making turkeys out of
That's
this.
what I'm saying.
All right, everybody ready? So we are going to label our hands. We're going to label our hands. There we go. On the thumb, you're going to write something that you do well. What gives you the thumbs up? On your first finger, what makes you stand out in a crowd? What makes you number one? On your middle finger, pet peeve, something that frustrates you, something that really drives you nuts. On your ring finger, what are you passionate about? What are you committed to? And the pinky finger is always the most fun one. What is it about you that maybe nobody else knows? A little known fact that might surprise even your colleagues. Another out is other than school. Was there anything that somebody wants to share that they learned about someone in the room that they didn't know? Yes.
Donna Sparks was a drum major in high school.
A drum major.
I know.
Yeah.
Angel Wilson can Bill dress a deer.
Miss Siobhan Ray used to be a rapper. Big rock and everything. What do you want to say?
Anyone else have something to share?
Next commercial, Siobhan Ray.
12 grandchildren.
Wow.
Oh, Jesus.
I can't even keep up with the 5 round dogs. One more.
Bobby Cook, second place on America's Funniest Home Videos. Playing golf.
I've got the tape if you want to see it.
Well, where did you get hit?
I have to preface this by
Where did you
saying,
get hit?
in order to play football when I was younger, my mother also made me take dancing. So I have to preface it by saying that, but in a dance recital, I was the ringmaster since I was, of course, one of the only few
Give me
guys.
the man card.
I'm
This
fixing to get it back. So the little girls were supposed to flip through the hoop as I was the ring. So but
They were
one little
poodles.
girl just would not. So I kind of went behind her and tried to
Shut
dance her along. I can't remember who she was, but she's probably traumatized for life.
Yeah, probably. Well, this is always a fun thing. You do learn about different things that your colleagues have done that you maybe didn't know before. And it kind of helps get us back into, the groove today. So we're going to talk about what Phoenix City Public Schools and their goals are for the STEM Leader Corps. We're going to define and describe, you are with me, because you're the ones who have decided what your learning lab environment is going to look like. And one thing that you have to understand is the learning labs will be over the 4-year period. The first year, it's the teachers in the learning labs are in that learning environment. It's not open yet for their colleagues. They only share that after they become comfortable with it. So the first year, the learning labs are for those learning lab teachers. You will identify what an effective STEM leader will be. You're going to be thinking about that. You're going to do more about that next time on December 7th, next Monday. And then you're going to lead an informational session with your teachers in order to get them on board so that you can recruit those teacher leaders. So why the STEM transformation? Many of you probably came from the classroom. I know very few principals who didn't start in the classroom, but I do know of one. But being in the classroom, remember years ago where they handed you a book and that was the sum total of your curriculum? When I started off teaching, we didn't have state standards. We had a book. And I could teach whatever I wanted out of that book. So if I didn't like a section, I could kind of skirt over that because we also didn't have the state tests at the end. We didn't really have to stand and go, did that work or did it not? We sometimes reflected on our own without even realizing that's what we were doing. But part of the STEM transformation is reflection. We're going to ask ourselves what works and what doesn't. And if it didn't work, why didn't it work? Sometimes it just needs a little tweak to make it work. So the STEM transformation also has that reflection piece embedded in it. How many of you have seen the TV show King of Queens? King of Queens. It wasn't one that I watched a lot. I'm going to show you a short video clip. The first time I watched it, it's like, I had to go back and watch it a second time because I wasn't real familiar with the show. And I thought, oh my gosh, I know exactly now why they picked this video. So I want you to look at it, thinking as you watch it, how it is important to schools.
Sunday. You know what I like to call it? Monday. It's a good one.
You don't hear that?
Okay, I got a couple problems here. Let's start with this one. Why do your socks have big fours on the bottom?
It's my new system. I label them so I don't mix them up with my other sets of socks.
Well, but all your socks are white. Just grab any two of them.
Obviously, you've never heard of toe memory. As a sock evolves, it either becomes a left sock or a right sock. If you put one on the wrong foot, you're asking for a day of discomfort and shame.
But how do the four tell you which one's the right and which one's the left?
Look, Douglas, my system has its flaws. I look at this from every angle, and believe me, there is no better way.
Unless you just label every sock as either an L or an R.
But there goes my fun day!
By the way, it Saturday.
So I would like for you to turn and talk with your neighbor and talk about how this applies to schools and classrooms. Good conversation, but I have just a couple people share what their thoughts are. I know I heard you say some really cool things.
Oh, okay. We just talked about one, it's a real life situation. It's a problem that kind of captivates you, just interests you a little bit, you know, because he had no intention of talking about socks, but once he posed this kind of problem, you know, then it was, you know, this was my solution, here's your solution, so let's just talk about what would actually make sense. And that's kind of how STEM is with children. You don't have to have all the answers, you just have to be able to facilitate the question. and then have the students explore, and then start to refine their thoughts, because in the end, he said there goes a Saturday, so he's getting ready to go change something based on what he's heard.
Absolutely. What other person would you like to share? I heard some good conversation over here too. One of you want to share?
We just talked about it encourages the collaboration whenever you got a situation that they're discussing, and you're basically having those particular students to talk about what the problem may be essentially. And between that particular conversation, they may develop, oh, well, if you come up with a system that you understand, explain that to me and I'll give you mine. So that way it encourages the collaboration of that and dividing ownership.
Absolutely. In the schools in the past, things worked okay, so we kind of left it with status quo. That's not okay anymore. We have to have engagement. We want students who are prepared for life after high school, whether it be college or career. And if they don't get a little taste of that while they're in school, when they get out in the real world, they don't know what to do. So this kind of brings home that there's more than one answer, more than one way to do things. And just because your system isn't like what somebody else's system is, doesn't mean it's wrong. A few years ago, I gave my students a box of stuff. And it was after all of our testing, so they could sit and just go through it. And I told them I wanted them to build a wheel. Now, we just opened the Orlando Eye, and they were all talking about that. A few of my students had already been. So their job was to come up with a plan to make something like that. One group sat and talked the whole time, and I kept going, guys, come on, you got this week to do this. We got this, Miss Brown. We got this. It's like, okay. So the day finally arrives that they have to present to the class, and this group that had sat in the back and talked were actually doodling on paper. They unveiled a 3D printer model of an eye, of a Ferris wheel. They had designed it, and one of the kids had a 3D printer at home. And he printed all the pieces, and they put it all together. So it wasn't what I had in mind, but was it wrong? Not in real life. It was pretty amazing, actually. We had all kinds of different things. Not any of them were the same as anybody else's, but they all fulfilled the job, the task. That's what STEM is all about. Excuse me, I got the dry mouth today. So why embark on this change movement? Well, first of all, we know that students learn differently than they ever have. Technology is right at hand all the time. They text each other when they're sitting next to one another instead of talking. This is their new way of communication. So we have to find a way to engage them. We have to have key shared goals that will accelerate student engagement. That's what it's all about. If you go into a classroom and students are engaged, it's very often noisy and very often messy and very often uncomfortable. Principals walk into classrooms, and in the old days, everybody had to be sitting, just like you guys, all sitting quietly, paying attention. Our students are not like that. They want to be all over the place. They want to be actively engaged. They want to be working. So our new goals have to reflect that. We have to maximize the investment in technology. My last school, everybody had an iPad, but they didn't have the PD to go with the use of the iPads, and most of the students were playing games, they were emailing each other, they were doodling, they were doing everything except what they were supposed to be doing. It took a while for the teachers to learn that you had to utilize the iPads in class. Otherwise, the students were going to utilize them for themselves. You have to prepare students for all kinds of things, for school, for the workforce, for college, everything. If they don't know how to use the technology, then once they get out into the real world and they're faced with that technology, they're at a loss. I was at a loss when I went into a school that had technology and I'd never seen it before. You're going to build a district-wide shared vision for STEM and for the STEM transformation. And we're going to have a sustainable, inquiry-based, transdisciplinary. You're going to learn a lot about transdisciplinary over the next 4 years. You're going to hear teachers talk about it. You're going to be talking about it. We're going to be talking about it. And we're going to talk about the STEM framework and what drives personalized learning. That's a big push among a lot of districts now with personalized learning and student centers. So, STEM learning. I'm not going to read this to you. I want you to read it. It's important that you understand that at Discovery, we really don't give you a specific definition of STEM. And the reason we don't is that STEM means a lot of things to different people. But when you look at all the different definitions that are out there and pick them apart, you'll find that they're all basically the same. And if you have your own definition of STEM or even STEAM, some districts have gone so far as STREAM, and I've even seen one district in Florida that uses streams. And it just gets crazy. But if you look at them, the bottom line is that they are all good instruction. And it's all focused around engagement of students. STEM learners, our students, are going to ask real questions. And it's important to understand that those real questions and the questions that teachers pose to the students have to be appropriate. They have to fit in. You can't just put a real-world question out there and it's out of context. It really does have to be woven into the curriculum. They're going to collaborate with the peers. Somebody pointed out, I don't remember which person now, pointed out that it's all about the collaborating. One idea, now another idea, working together to come up with a common idea. Or agreeing that we have two different ideas. They're going to arrive at meaningful conclusions, and they're going to talk about STEM careers. Next time, we're going to talk about STEM careers and what that means. Understand that when we talk about STEM careers now, we don't just mean a career in math or a career in science. We're talking about STEM in careers. I got to go to Disney, to their laundry facilities a few years ago. I know it sounds real exciting, right? Believe it or not, that was one of the coolest things I ever got to do, because I saw real people who were giving real ideas to the engineers, and they developed some of their own machinery that would fold the sheets, measure the sheets, put them on the conveyor belt, and it speeded up the process. And that came from their very own ideas. So even something as bland as a laundry facility will have real-world problems that they need to solve, and they'll bring in engineers to do that. STEM is not a class. This is one of the key pieces that we're trying to drive home now, is that STEM's a culture. You don't teach a STEM class. Just because you teach science doesn't mean you're a STEM teacher. Just because you teach math doesn't mean you're a STEM teacher. Teachers can be STEM teachers if they teach art or language arts or social studies, because they are engaging students, they're tackling real-world problems, and they're bringing in those transdisciplinary ideas. So what exactly does that mean? It literally means it branches across all disciplines, but it's different than multidisciplinary or even interdisciplinary, because it also encompasses community. So that brings in that real world piece. It's not enough to bring in math and science and social studies and language arts and even art. you also have to apply it to the world that those students live in. And that then becomes transdisciplinary. And here's a graphic that shows that. If, for instance, we had a study lesson that we wanted innovations and inventions, we could talk about innovations and inventions in every discipline. In science, we could talk about what the microscope did for us. Without the microscope, we wouldn't know about microorganisms. Without knowing about microorganisms, we probably wouldn't have things like antibiotics. How did that change our world? Probably one of the most significant discoveries ever. In math, you could talk about how new innovations and inventions have changed the economy, cost, and effect. In language arts, you could read about those various things. In social studies, you could talk about how they changed history, or how it impacted the government and rules and regulations. Arts and career and technical, they could actually design something. Maybe you could give them a task. How could we do this better? What could we design to actually do it with less energy or more efficiency? Did you have a question? No? It must be just the right spot to have that be. There we go. So our learning outcomes as students, we're going to connect them to the real world, but as graduates, they also have to be connected. They have to learn what they're going to need to solve problems and develop solutions in the real world, especially in the workforce. You're going to see a video next week that talks about what different corporations are looking for, and I'm not going to tell you right now what it is, but there are some characteristics that we don't teach them by giving them a lesson. It's something that they have to explore to be able to get those qualities that the workforce is looking for. Creativity to solve problems in the future. One of the biggest issues facing our students right now is how do we prepare them for a job that doesn't even exist right now? When I was in school, we didn't have to worry about that. I already knew what I was going to be when I grew up. Our students today don't, because there are going to be jobs that are available that they have no clue. We have no clue. Effective technology is really important. The thing is, very often we see STEM and we concentrate on the science and the technology part. Technology is a very effective tool to use in STEM. Can you do STEM without technology?
Yes.
Absolutely. You can do STEM with a box full of stuff. Rubber bands, index cards, straws, and tape. You guys did a STEM project, didn't you, with Cindy? With the spaghetti and the marshmallow?
Some of us did.
Some of Are you saying you didn't?
I tried.
You tried. But now you could go back and do it again and succeed, correct?
Super good.
Absolutely. So you saw STEM at its finest. STEM challenges very often don't even require technology other than maybe to do some research, maybe some background. So if you don't have the technology, or for some reason the internet's down that day, that never happens, right? Right. You never have technical issues, right? But when that happens, isn't it nice to know that STEM doesn't require that you can do it without the technology, although it is a great tool. So how do we make the STEM transformation? PD. Very often, and I told you that before, you go to this great instruction and there's no follow-through and no follow-up. And you don't do anything with it. That's not going to happen with Discovery. In Discovery, we understand that it requires at least 80 hours of good quality professional development over a period of time. You don't want it in 2 weeks, because then it's like overkill. spread out over 2 years in order to change practice, and twice that much to change the culture. And it's the culture that will eventually be changed for the STEM transformation. There we go. How many of you are familiar with Edmodo? Okay. I want you to take a moment right now, and if you don't have an Edmodo account, create one. If you do have an Edmodo account, you're going to log in, and there's the code for my webpage. It should say Phoenix City Public Schools on it, and there are questions posed, which you cannot answer just yet. While you're doing that, I want you to also, let's see how we're going to do this. I need you to break into groups of 5. So if you could just like group yourselves so that you don't have to do a whole lot of movement, just clusters, turn around. You guys might want to come around and bring your chairs, but get into groups of 5. All right. Now you should have your group set up. Each group has a stack of articles. There are 5 articles. Each person will be reading a different article. You've got about 10 or 15 minutes or so to read the article and to post reflection answers to the questions on Edmodo. So feel free to write on these, underline, circle, highlight, whatever you like. So today we're going to talk about the keys to supporting this STEM initiative. And we're going to spend about 10 minutes doing that, and then we've got an activity where you're going to be up, moving around a little bit. If you have something plugged in, I know there's a couple things plugged in over here, not right now, but when we get ready to start moving through the chart paper, make sure that all the cords and everything are out of the way so that nobody knocks your computer off and breaks it, because we don't want that to happen. So we're going to talk about the mission-driven leadership, we're going to talk about the culture and the structure of our STEM formations, and we're going to talk about partnerships. So mission-driven leadership, you're all here because you have that already. You want to be, I thought you were somebody else. You want to be well-informed, you want to know what's going on in the classrooms with your teachers as well as your students. And you are all leading by example. That's why you're here today. You're going to learn about what your teachers are going to learn about. You're going to learn about it in more detail. We're going to get into more detail next week about it. You're going to create an environment that's free of, I guess, fear for teachers. I remember one time I was doing a presentation and I put a slide in that said, failure is an option. And I got in so much trouble for that. Well, failure is an option, and we learn a lot more by failing sometimes than we do by succeeding. If you succeed the first time, have you really learned a whole lot? You learn a whole lot more by failing. And one of the examples that I used, and I lost the argument, but I used this with my boss, and I said, you know, WD-40 is called WD-40 because it stands for water displacement, the 40th try. The first 39 formulas didn't work. Well, if that person had said failure was not an option and gave up, I mean, who doesn't have WD-40 in their cabinet at home? And maybe every cabinet in your house.
See, I stopped at 408.
I know, really.
I know, I stopped at 408.
So failure is an option. As a matter of fact, students learn by failing. And at the Science Center in Orlando, I talked to one of the curators, and they have a STEM center there. And he said, you know, a group of students came in one day, and they let them just work in whatever group they wanted. And this one group over here, you can tell these were the smart kids. They were the ones who really got straight A's and did really well. And this group over here, they were kind of the kids who were used to not doing so well, and it's like failing all the time. And they were put to a STEM challenge, competing against one another. And guess who won? Not the group over here that he thought was going to win. And the reason for winning, they didn't want to fail. They didn't get in and get their hands dirty. They didn't get in and work at it because they wanted to do it right the first time, and they failed. The group over here is like, well, let's try this. No, that didn't work. Let's try this. And before it was over with, they won the STEM challenge and not the other group. The guy says, can you believe that? I said, absolutely. You guys can believe that, right? Because you've seen it. So with STEM, failing is part of it. You get in, you try it. If it doesn't work, you try again. We're going to prepare students to meet the demands. In the workforce, are they going to succeed every single time, the first time? Sometimes they don't succeed at all and they throw the whole thing out and start all over again. That's okay. You're going to create and communicate a shared vision and purpose. So that's what the next few sessions are going to be about. We're going to create a school culture. What do you notice in this picture? What would happen if somebody let go? Yeah, they would fly apart. So they all stay together and collaborate in a way. That's what we're going to do with our teachers. The culture does matter. Again, next week we're going to talk again about teachers who are like, I'm not so sure about that. Maybe. I'm just going to sit and watch and see what happens. The naysayers. We used to have a guy in a building where I taught about 15 years ago. He used to say, don't worry about that email that we got that we have to do such and such. He said, just wait. If they ask me to do it the third time, I'll do it. But he said, if I do it the first time and then they change their mind, I've done the work for nothing. Well, you know, when you get that type of teacher on board, you've got them, right? So we're going to learn about getting those people on board and owning it. Instead, I heard somebody say buying in a while ago. And buying in is great, but that implies that somebody else already had it done and they're just going to take it and use it. Where instead if they own it, it's part of them. And so that makes a huge difference. We get rid of the negativity and the naysayers. It's going to be a collaborative environment. You're going to have professional learning communities or PLCs. We did that in a district that I was in, gosh, a long time ago, when PLCs were brand new and nobody knew what they were. And nobody explained it to us, and so guess what happened the next year? We didn't have any. They're making a comeback now, but we have the support. Discovery gives you the support. So PLCs without the support and the research behind it are not very effective. We have deep collaboration, that's why it's highlighted, deep collaboration between administrators and teachers and with Discovery. Organizational structures, coordinated system of curriculum. It's your curriculum, it's not Discovery's curriculum. We utilize your curriculum. You have professional development for your teachers over a 4-year period to change the culture, not to come, sit, get, put on the shelf and forget. There will be continued support. Your teachers will have coaching. They can even come in and co-teach with your teachers to create this culture in the classroom. Strong parent and community ties. This is really important, and I understand you guys are going to have a kickoff at some point, like in a couple of months. Is that right?
We are.
Yes, I thought so. You're going to have a student learning climate where your students will be responsible for their own learning. Give them a real world problem and have them solve it. Don't tell them how they're going to do it. Ask them how they're going to do it. And your leadership's going to be focused on cultivating the stakeholders, your teachers, parents, your students. And there they are, the keys to the transformation. Students, parents, and school staff at all levels, every level. I've been in schools where the custodians would recognize students and say, hey, what are you doing in such and such a class? And the kids would tell them. So you create that culture that everybody's important, everybody's involved. And you're going to do that with STEM Leader Corps. It's actually a 4-year program. The first year is the teachers will get their professional development. They will learn about creating that learning lab environment in their classroom. Probably for the first full year, they will not have their colleagues in to learn. That will come the second year. You want them to be very comfortable with it before you invite other people in. The learning lab is going to be a place where the teachers will succeed, they will fail, the students will succeed, some will fail, but they're going to learn, and they will continue to work through problems until they figure out that it's a collaborative effort and that they need to solve problems. How many times I was in the classroom, I heard students say, "Why do I need to learn this?" Well, several years ago, I started a program in forensic science. I never heard that one time, not one time that whole year. And it dawned on me, the reason I didn't was because they already saw the reason behind it. So if you can present to them real-world issues and problems applicable to the classroom setting, they won't ask why I need to know this. They're going to know why they need to know this, and they will want to know that. It's going to be sustained through leadership models, through a STEM professional development, which they're going to get over the course of 4 years, ongoing coaching and maybe even co-teaching, instructional progression. So they're going to, I heard somebody say this earlier, they're going to learn to crawl before they learn to walk, and they're going to learn to walk before they learn to run. Although I've been places where it's like, okay, I want to run with it right now. Well, what happens when you run before you know how to walk? It's not so pretty, is it? So they're going to be led through that gradual progression to get to the end point in 4 years, not in 4 weeks or 4 months. And it's going to be high quality, standards-based, based on your standards, STEM, cross-curricular, transdisciplinary instruction. You're going to have 6 schools, and I'm sorry, I've already, is that right? Is that wrong?
I think we're going to be more than 6.
It would be
More than 6, okay.
And we'll talk more about this at leadership on Wednesday, and then we will talk even more about this next Monday.
Okay. Okay, so 6 plus.
And that's my
school-
fault, I gave Rhonda those numbers.
No, that's a fluid number.
Okay,
And it depends on buy-in, lack of a better term.
okay. So the 24 STEM teachers could be different as well then, depending on
No,
how
we'll
the
stay,
school.
we'll probably have the 20, no, we'll stay with 24.
Probably stick with 24? Okay. And you will have 1 building administrator in each school. So this will be the STEM leader core. You'll have learning lab classrooms that will be sharing and collaborating with one another, sharing and collaborating with their colleagues in year 2. They will be experimenting with different strategies with their students. And I can tell you, as a classroom teacher, there were times when period 1, I would do something and it would work great. And I'd do it with my 3rd period class and it bombed. I mean, it was stinky. It was so bad. And it's like, what did I do differently? Well, that was the problem. I didn't do it differently. I tried to do the same thing with group A that I did with group B, and that didn't always work. So they're going to learn about fine-tuning for all those different groups and transferring skills from what they're learning to their colleagues and to their students. You'll have a whole school learning lab, 4 learning lab classrooms that will be led by teacher leaders that you will choose later on. And you'll have a whole school learning lab that will be led by a building administrator. And that one lab, that's other teachers can come in and bring their students to that lab. You're going to build a STEM community with a shared vision of students, building administrator, yes.
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm confused just a little bit. You keep referencing a learning lab. Are you
It's a
talking-
classroom, it's an environment.
Are you talking about the STEM labs that we're building within our district right now?
No.
Okay,
A classroom can be a learning lab.
okay.
Does that make sense? Maybe that's,
And one of your STEM labs could also become a
it could be.
It's just running parallel.
Yeah, that's a good word, parallel. So it's more like an environment.
They don't.
Okay. So we're
There's a lot
gonna,
going on here, bud.
there's a lot going on. And I know that you're gonna walk out of here thinking, oh my head is ready to explode. But when we come back next week, and then we come back next month, and talk about it, it will become more and more clear, and it will be, oh yeah, I got that. I've got that all figured out. So you're gonna have business leaders. Is that better? I just realized that wasn't showing very well. Your STEM learning community, that's gonna be all of you. District administration, again, all of you. You're gonna get parents and innovative teachers involved, and have STEM teachers that will lead the pack. You'll have some that will be me. You'll have others that are gonna sit back and wait, but eventually, you're all gonna have STEM team teachers involved. Answer your question? So how do we do that? They're going to be engaged in several different types of experience for STEM. They're going to learn and develop a shared vision. Some of it will be you as a group determined. Some of it will be done with discovery. Some of it's already done. Community and school leaders will be involved, as well as students and parents. The coolest phone call I ever got from a parent was, oh, I have a question. My student came home and said, you were talking about this in class, and I want to know more about that. What? A parent wants to know more about what I was teaching in class? But kids go home and they talk to their parents about what they're learning. And when they're learning about things that are interesting to them and applicable to them and will apply to them in the real world later on, they talk about it. Students experience real-world STEM application through their instruction in the classroom. They will have hands-on, they will learn through digital resources, and they will talk to people in the industry. Just like I was telling you about the Disney, the laundry that came out and talked to us, and then we went out and talked to them. You know, you've got industry partners you could tap into here in Phoenix City. Then you've got STEM innovators. You've got those teachers who are, right now, they're ready to go. You have to hold them back. And school leaders and administrators who are going to help with the transition. The year one goal, I'm going to let you read that. Okay. And the year one outcomes. There we go. So you can see that we have outcomes with a shared goal, that there are different outcomes for administrators, teachers, and students. And yet they all have things in common. Throughout all three, you notice that there's an atmosphere of learning, problem solving, and collaboration. Okay. Year two, and I'm going to go through this more quickly because we're still in year one. You're going to develop the STEM experiences in their own classrooms through different types of inquiry, and PBL. You guys do project-based learning in your district, correct? I think I heard somebody talk about that earlier today. With year two outcomes, engagement and achievement, two biggies. We want the students to be able to be engaged actively in the classroom. We want them to achieve success through relevant content. again, throwing those real-world examples into the classroom where they're appropriate, not just throwing them in just because, well, we have to stick in an example. If it doesn't mesh with what you're already talking about, the students are going to recognize it as fake. So make sure that they're not fake, make sure that they're real. And that's one of the things that the teachers are going to be working with their coaches, is making sure that they can make those connections to real world in appropriate places for their students. It's going to involve critical thinking and creativity, and again, another big one, collaboration. Year 3, it's hard to believe that, it's going to be here that quickly, but we're already talking about what we're going to be doing in, what year would that be, 2017? Maybe the beginning of 2018 for the teachers, developing the robust critical thinking. We ask students and teachers to think critically, and sometimes we haven't taught them how. If you go in and you have a group of students who have never been involved in critical thinking and you throw something like that at them, what do? Nothing, because they don't know how to do it. So as it evolves, they're going to learn how to do robust critical thinking. And the third year outcome. You're going to have learning labs that are open to other teachers and instructional coaching, internal STEM coaching, so your teachers will be teaching others. The students are going to learn about STEM and its transdisciplinary learning. They're going to be able to attack those real-world problems with confidence, and they're going to learn about STEM in careers and looking at things that they might be able to do with that STEM thinking. In year 4, you're going to be implementing sustainable practices. That's the year where you're going to have everything on board, all the pieces will be there, and you're going to look at different initiatives, you're going to look at instructional strategies, you're going to bring in more community connections. And there are your outcomes for the 4th year. Lots of stuff, I know. And all of this you will get at a much deeper level in the next few sessions. So you don't have to take all this in today, thank heavens, right? But it just kind of gives you an overview of what's coming over the next 4 years. And of course, the 4 C's of instruction from Discovery, where you have the creativity, the curriculum, and I've just lost the other 2. My mind just went totally blank. Help me out, Stephanie. Collaboration. We've been talking about collaboration. So you will have all of the 4 C's built into your STEM instructional progression. Oh, there they are for me. Critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration. So y'all, are you all ready to get up and move around a little bit, get the blood flowing again? Anybody in here not have a QR code reader on your phone or iPad? If you do not, please pair up with someone who does. I'm going to put you in groups. If you want to download a QR code reader, there's a ton of them out there, and as far as I know, they're all free, and I don't know that any one is better than another. The one I have on my phone, I downloaded 2 or 3 years ago, and it still works just fine. So you'll see that there's chart paper around the room. That's group 5 over there, 4, 3, 2, and group 1 over here. I tried to separate it a little bit so it wouldn't be falling all over one another. I want you to break into groups of 4 or 5, no groups of 3, no groups of 6, 4 or 5, just so that we don't have too many people. And at each station, you're going to do the QR code reader, and it will be a question. And then on chart paper, and I'm going to bring around markers, I want every group to have a different color. That way, at the end, when you do your graffiti walk, or we also call that a gallery walk sometimes, you can go from paper to paper and see which group wrote what, so that if you have a question, who was the one who had the blue? And that group, if they have a question for the blue group, then they can answer that for somebody else. So go ahead and break into 5 groups, 5 people, or 4, not 3 years. So group 1, is there something that really sticks out to you guys? Which one? Collaborator and teamwork, sharing of ideas. What about in group 2? Is there a theme or a word that really resonates? Which one? Collaboration. Collaboration again. Okay, what about group 3? Where's 3? Do you have a word?
Not really.
No?
Collaboration,
Collaboration and sharing. Group 4? Support. Okay, I heard, and I saw support written on a lot of them. And group 5, is there something that really sticks out on yours?
Are we group 5?
You're group 5.
Oh, which one stood out the most? Which one stood out the most?
Which one resonates with you? You know, it's something that you feel is really important that,
Pedagogical background and content knowledge.
wow. Okay, pedagogical content and background knowledge. So for the next couple minutes, just go ahead and walk around at your leisure, look at the different ones, and then find your seat again. So the power of potential is what you have to unlock. I remember many, many years ago when I first was in the classroom, I had a student whose name was Wade. And Wade was consistently at the bottom of every test. He basically had an F in my class. But I knew that there was something about him that we weren't reaching. And you know, biology, and he was in the biology B class, which meant that it was for the kids who couldn't take regular biology. I don't even know if they still have a class like that anymore. So we were already, you know, supposed to dumb it down, which I always hated. So Wade kept saying, "Can I bring my snake in?" It's like, oh no, I hate snakes. Not only that, I'm deathly afraid of snakes. And he said, "How can you be a biology teacher and be afraid of snakes?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, but I am." So, you know, a week would go by and Wade would go, "Can I bring my snake in?" And finally it's like, oh my gosh, this kid is driving me crazy. So finally I relented and I said, "I'll tell you what, you can bring it in. It has to be in a cage. It has to stay in the very back of the room and I don't want you to see it." He said, "Okay." I said, "Friday." So this was like Wednesday. Thursday, I noticed that Wade seemed to be paying attention and answered some questions. It's like, wait a minute. This is the kid, I didn't even know he had a voice other than, "Can I bring my snake in?" Friday comes, he brings the snake, puts it in the back of my room. Well, to make a long story short, by the end of the period, not only was the snake in the front of the room, I was holding it.
Wow.
Now, I'm telling you, I still can't believe I actually held it. But from that day on, Wade got straight A's in my class. Because of that snake. It took that little thing to unlock his potential. Who would have known? So I always feel like the key to teaching a student is to find out what their key is to unlock that potential of that student. And it's different for all of them. Some of them come in ready to go. I was that student. I wanted to learn. I still want to learn. But then you have those reluctant learners. My daughter is a reluctant learner. You had to find her key or you lost her. So unlocking that potential, because it is extremely powerful. So I want you to think about potential in your teachers as well. What will unlock their potential? What is their potential to be a STEM teacher leader? Who are the teachers in your building who have that? Who are the ones who maybe have it but don't know they've got it? And there are a lot of those too. Because they might be afraid of what word? Failure. They want to do everything right. I was that. I didn't want to fail. I wanted to be good. I wanted to do right. And I was afraid of failing. And it was after one of my lessons flopped miserably that I learned it was the best learning experience for me. So tap into those teachers. Think about them. What are the characteristics that you as a building administrator are going to be looking for? Think about that over the next week. And how are you going to select your administrators? I know you talked to in a meeting earlier about how that's going to be done, and I'm sure that will be conveyed to all of you, how that's going to be accomplished, because it may not be the first one who goes, me, 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 me. It might be the one who's sitting there going, I don't know, I kind of like to do that, but I'm not so sure. Those are the ones you want to get. So how do STEM teacher leaders support others? Not the first year, but later on. They're going to invite their colleagues into their classrooms and see what learning looks like, what it sounds like, even what it feels like if they're getting in there and getting their hands dirty. Remember I told you, it's noisy, it's messy, sometimes it's dirty, but the kids love it. So you're going to have learning labs, and I think you were the one who asked me, what exactly is a learning lab? Well, it can be anything. This could be a learning lab, and there are no lab tables in here. But it's the environment that you convey. You can do a STEM learning lab outside, especially right here. You have all of that out there. We could go outside and make slides, paper slides, and bring them back in, and they would collect all kinds of things out there, and you could probably have a week's worth of lessons just on what they pick up out of the grass. That's STEM learning. They're getting in, they're getting their hands dirty. How many of you ever shopped at IKEA? And how many of you gotten home and found you have no idea how to put together whatever it is you bought? What did you do? You what? Well, you know what? I learned something that I didn't know. For them, it would be in Swedish. But a lot of materials that you buy that have to be put together, they are made in Taiwan or Vietnam or China or Korea. And the people who write the directions write them in their native language. And then somebody who speaks both languages translates them. So sometimes there are things really and truly lost in translation because you read the directions and you go, that doesn't make any sense. That's why. If they were made here and written in English, they would probably make a whole lot more sense. So, when it's lost in translation, or all the directions are in Swedish, what do? You call tech support or customer service. Oops. So you call them and walk through it. Last week, I have a smart TV. It's smarter than I am most of the time. And we had a storm and it knocked my Netflix out. So I do all the things it tells me to do on my TV, and none of it worked. So I had to call tech support. And you know what I found out? It just so happens, it was a coincidence. The storm hit at just about the same time that I switched credit cards, and my old credit card number didn't work anymore, so they canceled my subscription. I didn't know that. And they didn't notify me that it didn't go through. So I'm thinking it's me, or it's them, and it was neither one. So a quick call to customer service, and we did some problem solving, and we got it figured out, and we're back in business. So that's what you have to do, and that's what your STEM innovators are going to do in the classroom too. If they have something and it works great, they're going to share it. If it doesn't work so well, they're going to collaborate with one another. If they can't figure it out, they're going to call tech support. They're going to call Discovery. And there is, from what I understand, like a 98% live call rate. When you call in to Discovery with a problem, a live person answers the phone. Really and truly. It's not for customer service, push 1. For English, press 2. You don't get that. You get a real person online. So you have immediate tech support. and the support of one another. So I want you to think of a time when you had to learn a new skill or a new task. What stands out to you? I told you mine. Think of one for you. What did your first attempt at that look like? Was it great? Was it messy? Was it horribly ugly? How did you finally master it? Did you do it all by yourself? Did you ask a friend? Did you call a tech support? And how did you measure your success? That's the last one. It's really important. Success doesn't look the same for everyone. When I had a student who couldn't read anything and they finally could read a short article in class, that was successful. When you have a student who was a really good reader and they couldn't read through or didn't read through something else, they weren't successful. I used to do book reports because we had a reading initiative in the district I was in. It's been about 10 or 15 years ago. And they had to do reading every Wednesday at a certain time. So I incorporated into this, I was teaching forensics, they had to have something that had the forensics theme. And one student I knew had a really difficult time reading. She had a learning disability. So I ordered a book on tape for her, of a book that she already had, and I let her listen while she read through. And she did it. And do you know that after that she read another book by the same author? Because the chapters were very short and she could get another book on tape. That was success for her. For the student who could read 5 books a week, that would not have been a success story. That would have been a lazy story. So what is successful for one student is not necessarily the same success story for another student. And so it's going to look different. The same thing with your teachers. What one teacher is doing may look very different than what another teacher is learning, but they might be doing the same topic or the same standard in your curriculum. So this is a rather wordy slide. I'm just going to let you skim over it. Focus especially on what Learning Lab experiences can, not necessarily will every time, but what they can include. We're going to look a lot more at this over the next few years. The one that really, really stands out to me is the last one. Discussing success or failure of a lab experience, a lab or a lesson with your peers in a PLC session. If you're not afraid of talking about things that failed, then there's something wrong. The support that Discovery has, the coaches will have with your teachers, the teachers will have with each other, will allow them to discuss the successes as well as the failures and learn from each other. I've had students, and I'm sure that you've had students, who were horrible for you, and yet the teacher down the hall loved that kid. I had a student one year, nobody would go to his house and do his homeschooling for him after he got suspended for the rest of the year as a senior because they were afraid of him. I love that kid. I took my daughter to that house with me while we did it, and he played with his sister. Nobody else would touch him. So learning from one another, being free to share, the successes as well as the failures, I think, is a very key part of the STEM formations. I think this is a video. I want you to watch this, and I want you to watch what happens. There are sticky notes on your table, so if there's something that you want to jot down, feel free to jot it down so that you don't forget. And hopefully this one's a little louder than the last one.
And salute the men and women serving our country with our national anthem. Please welcome, as voted by you, the fans, our winner of the Toyota Get the Feeling of a Star promotion, Natalie Gilbert.
Is there anybody in here who was just like, for that girl? So what happened? What did you hear? What happened?
People start singing along with her.
First, one person came in and said, hey, it's okay. We'll get through this. And then before long, in the background, you heard everybody singing. And she got more confident, didn't she? Because it was obvious as soon as she started belting it out. She had a great voice, but she got nervous and forgot the words, didn't know what to do. And somebody was thoughtful enough to say, hey, come on, it's okay. Well, that's what your teachers are going to get, and that's what your students are going to get from the teachers. That kind of support. Not doing it for her. He didn't take the microphone and do it over, did he? He said, keep going, prod them along, the support. And before long, it was like collaboration, right? So it's important that we realize as we go on this journey that we have that special support and the collaboration. On your index cards, and if you don't have any, I do have a few extras if you still need one. Anyone else need index cards? I want you to reflect on today and on what questions you might still have. So, what did you learn today that maybe you didn't already know? What do you feel better about now than you did this morning? What do you see as a barrier to success? And we're going to talk more about those barriers next time. And what questions do you still have